Hey folks, how you doing? My name's Dave McRae. So I've noticed in recent years, and maybe you guys have too, that there appears to be a growing movement in the horror community, with many horror fans now claiming that The Exorcist 3 is a far superior and scarier film to the original The Exorcist. And while Exorcist 3 is a genuinely unsettling and well-crafted psychological thriller with one of the greatest jump scares in horror history, I absolutely love the movie, I think it's important that we clarify what we mean when we say something is better or scarier, because if we're not careful, we risk undervaluing what the original Exorcist truly accomplished and why it was once considered the scariest film of all time. You see, the power of the original film isn't in its special effects, which by today's standards may seem a little dated, although I do think the effects still hold up really well today. Nor is it solely in the performances from Linda Blair or Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow or Jason Miller, who were all exceptional. You see, The Exorcist was terrifying because of its cultural impact, because of what it meant in 1973. The United States was a far more religious, more conservative, and in many ways, more naive society. The idea of a 12-year-old girl possessed by a demon, cursing, self-harming, defiling herself with a crucifix, these were taboos that nobody had ever seen on screen before, let alone in such graphic, emotional detail. What made it so effective wasn't the gore or pea soup, it was the implication. The notion that evil could invade the life of an innocent child, that science and medicine were powerless, and that only faith could intervene struck a primal nerve in audiences. Reports of people fainting, vomiting, or running out of the theater weren't just hype. Many viewers genuinely believed they had witnessed something unholy. Another layer that made The Exorcist so terrifying was how plausible it felt. Director William Friedkin approached the material like a documentary, grounding the supernatural in cold, clinical realism. The medical scenes are especially brutal, not just because they're graphic, but because they reflect a real-world helplessness. Before the supernatural even shows its face, we witness a child poked and prodded and subjected to disturbing tests, all while her mother grows increasingly desperate. That's horror grounded in reality, and it lingers. There's also the slow pace of dread. Modern horror often leans on rapid-fire scares, but The Exorcist builds tension with patience. The demon doesn't arrive in full force, it creeps, chipping away at normalcy, until what once felt safe becomes corrupted. Reagan's bedroom transforms into a battleground between good and evil, and the very existence of her life, a suburban home, a loving mother, doctors doing their jobs, makes the invasion of the demonic feel even more insidious. And finally, the religious context can't be overstated. In a largely Christian America in the early 70s, this film challenged people's faith directly. This wasn't just a horror story, it was a spiritual crisis. What if the devil really could possess your child? What if the church was your only hope? For many viewers, The Exorcist didn't feel like fiction. It felt like a warning. So while there is no doubt that The Exorcist 3 is a great movie and scary in its own right, I think it's important that, especially for younger viewers, remember the context for which the original film was released and why it was called the scariest movie ever made. It wasn't because of green slime, 365-degree head turns, and foul language. You can prefer one over the other, but the context, the impact, and the moment in history all matter. To diminish the original is to misunderstand why it worked and why it terrified an entire generation. My name's Dave McRae. Cheers.